A very pleasant good afternoon to all of our friends in wherever you are located at this afternoon. We thank you for joining. Let's talk. We are delighted to be with you. It's the first day of, actually the first program of the new year. Today is day 2 of 2021. So I begin by expressing a very spirit-filled, prosperous, meaningful, peaceful, and happy new year from my wife and myself. From the administration of the South Leeward Conference, we wish you God's blessings and pray that it will be very unlike last year in a positive way. This afternoon, we are fittingly going to be talking about COVID conspiracies and your well-being. We have with us a special guest, but before I introduce him, I would like to invite you to have a word of prayer, shall we? Eternal Father and our God, we are grateful for the privilege, the opportunity to share with all those of our viewers who have joined on SLC Adventist as we go into this another edition of this Let's Talk program. You know the topic, the importance of what we're going to be discussing. We pray that you will guide in the discussion and grant that we will be able to provide meaningful information that will help your people. In Jesus' name, amen. When we started Let's Talk, on the very first edition, way back when, was it in April or May, somewhere around there, we had a special guest to begin. We were in the midst of the COVID lockdown, I can recall, and we had Dr. Neals Chitan with us for our very first program. It is fitting to have Dr. Chitan back this afternoon for the first program of 2021. Wow. And Dr. Chitan, I want to welcome you. And when we were last here at the beginning of our Let's Talk program, we were in the midst of the COVID lockdown, and everybody's mind was on COVID. And we all felt that by this time, COVID would be behind us, but it is still very present. And we are going to be talking about that this afternoon again. I mean, it's 2021, and I heard in the news last week that in England, the rate of infection was higher than it was back in April when at the height of the lockdown.
Yeah.
So
with a different strain.
Yeah, things are pretty rough these days. We all think that COVID would have been over and done.
Yeah.
So first, welcome and Happy New Year to you, Doc.
Thank you so much, Dr. Greene. It's my pleasure to be back with South Leeward. Let's talk. I want to say Happy New Year, happy, productive, but especially healthy New Year 2021. 2020 was a challenge, and even if God has blessed us in Grenada, and I guess no doubt Antigua or St. Kitts or Montserrat or whichever part of the SLC, with probably no debts or probably little debts, we have suffered in some way or the other. We suffered loss of relatives in North America and England. And so what can I do but to wish you and the South Leeward Conference a healthy, productive, blessed, and healthy 2021. I also especially want to say hi to my friends out in St. Kitts and Nevis, because spent 2.5 years and so it's good to be back. I hope some of them are on.
Well, I do hope so, Doc. You had a little slight drop in connectivity there, but we got a point, and we're going to pray for uninterrupted internet connectivity going forward. Now, this afternoon, we want to begin the discussion, Dr. Chitan, with this matter of COVID controversies. There are people out there who still, I did visit the United States this year. Um, it was a tough decision, but I went, and I was in a certain store and talking to a lady, and her question was, "What is COVID?"
Right.
As to suggest that COVID does not exist. Are there, from your interaction, are there people who still genuinely believe that COVID is a fake?
Yeah, and Doc, the last article, my last published article for the year, was captioned "Conspiracy Theories and Fake News Fuel COVID-19 Non-Compliance." Um, you see, there's what to fight an enemy and to see the enemy, to see where they're coming from, be able to sidestep them or outsmart them, is one thing. But to fight an enemy and not know, not be able to see it, an invisible enemy, a biological enemy, and it's not fighting it, it's fighting you. And
Okay, Doc, if I could just
COVID-19,
interrupt you and ask you to make that point again, because I think you dropped out a little bit there.
okay. Yeah, I'm praying everything works well here,
Yes.
because this is a discussion, and pray the devil doesn't get it better. Now, the point I was making, are you hearing me now?
Yes, I am hearing you now. It's not the best, but let's make the best of it.
Okay. Just give me 1 second, if you don't mind,
Okay,
and make
sure.
sure I get this.
If it's going to be better, wonderful. Yes. So to our viewers, we are in conversation with Dr. Neals Chitan. Many of you in the Caribbean area would know of Dr. Chitan. He is, you may say, a social scientist. Has worked for many years in the area of crime prevention. Has done a few stints in St. Kitts Nevis. Um, Went there to assist with the crime problem, and was so successful that the government invited him to stay longer than he had initially anticipated. Eventually, he has moved to Grenada, because he had made a commitment to the government of Grenada that he was going to assist them in the same area. And he has consented to be with us this afternoon to discuss this very important matter of COVID-19, the social implications going forward. We are beginning the conversation by talking about some COVID controversies. There's a particular article that he wrote just a couple of weeks ago, and we want to talk about it a little bit, but he's having a little bit of internet connectivity issues, so we are sorting that through, and in a short moment he will be back with us. So be patient with us as we prepare for this very important discussion this afternoon. The internet connectivity on the special guest N, Dr. Neals Chitan, has been in and out, but we are seeking and working to rectify that. And so he's going to be back with us in a short while. Dr. Chitan, you're back. Unmute, please.
Okay.
Yes.
I hope this is going to be
Wonderful.
better.
Okay, great.
Right, I had to move location. All right. So the point I was making is we are seeing a high level of non-compliance to COVID rules and regulations. And I have done a lot of work, not only in the Caribbean. I've spoken to audiences in England, in Canada, in the States. And I'm hearing this from some of the pastors and even some of the civic leaders that they are having problems with compliance to these COVID regulations. And of course, as we were saying early on, the enemy we're fighting, it's an invisible enemy. It's a biological enemy. It's not a soldier that you could see and sidestep. It's not someone you could recognize. And for the average layman, and in my article that I last article I published there, I spoke about it as clearly as I can. Some people have not yet reached the point, Dr. Greene, of belief. And I said it very clearly in the article, belief becomes behavior. If you don't believe that something is a threat, then why lock yourself down, or why go through all the issues of being locked down, being quarantined, can't go out to the store? Why do I have to put this mask on my face? I'm personally claustrophobic and I don't like the mask. But the reason why I'm wearing it, because I have reached a point of belief, right? I've done my research, and I realize it will kill me. So I act accordingly. And I think it is the point where people are not, we've had so many, and I don't want to use the term that the 45th president of the United States of America has made so common out there, and that's fake news. We label everything and everyone now as fake news or fake news mongering. And so we have to ask ourselves the questions, is it really true? And if, as an individual, you cannot come to terms or grasp with what we are facing as an imminent threat to our lives, then of course you don't want to just treat it like an ordinary situation that's going to pass over or blow over. And as we see now, Pastor, it's not blowing over. Britain has come up with a new strain, and we just found 3 of these cases in Canada. And so we are locking down against these islands.
But let me interrupt you a little bit there, because what you're saying there is significant. But I'm wondering, I mean, for us in the Caribbean at least, we have been 9 months into this thing, and I suppose people are a little wary of all the restrictions, the social gatherings, the prohibitions, the beaches, for example, in Antigua, the beach on Christmas Day closed at 1 p.m. When people were accustomed to, on holidays like these, going to the beaches and having fun, and I think because we do not have a lot of cases, in Antigua now, I think we have four active cases, if I may have missed the news for a day or so, but not very many. So there are lots of people who tell themselves, I'm not at risk. But I watch the folks as they go about the place, and they have the mask because it is required, but they're not wearing it properly. So they have the mask below their chin, and some even have it on their wrist, which is amazing. So do you think that perhaps it's just the time, 9 months is a long time, and people are a little wary, and they're thinking, well, if it was going to kill me, it would have already, so what's the big deal?
Yeah, you know what I find, Dr. Greene, you look at the 60s and 70s, when some of these venereal diseases like the syphilis and the gonorrhea were raging. People were so scared of them, and then they would kill you. But then came another strain in the 80s, herpes came. And they say herpes were going to surely kill you. Herpes now is something of the past. Then AIDS came. And then you have the greats like Magic Johnson and them coming on and say they have AIDS. And oh, look, he's living based on the record, 27, 28 years with AIDS. AIDS is now becoming normalized. right? And so the longer we are exposed to something, is the more normalized it become, and we want to return to what we are accustomed with. But people are realizing it's not the old normal, but it's a new normal now. So people are putting a mask on their arm, they're wearing under the chin, and that is really for enforcement. In case a police shows up, I can slip it on quickly, right? It's not because I really believe I'm going to contract this virus that's going to kill me, but it's really a form of just to quiet the enforcers, really, because if you really believe that's going to kill you and that, it's contagious and it would spread, that somebody could sneeze and give it to you, then you're going to wear your mask every time. So again, I want to hop on my mantra, the mantra that I've created and used: belief becomes behavior. It's what you believe, right? And Doc, there is quite a lot of questions, even from the very beginning of COVID, right? Very beginning of COVID. Where did it come from? I mean, the 45th president of the United States still call it the China virus, right? Because it originated, as far as we know, in Wuhan, China, in the wet meat markets. And it was specifically pinned to bat meat, eating bat. And then from there, as my article clearly says, from there it jump bordered into Iran. Iran is a Muslim nation, and they too, like some evidence, they watch that. They don't eat bat meat, but they were infested with it. And then he came across Europe and then hit the office of Boris Johnson, who is the prime minister of England, and sent him hooked up on a respirator, right? So the question is it bat meat? Is it true? I mean, and if we cannot make people believe something, they will act accordingly.
Let me ask you, as a social scientist, so to speak, what is it about human beings that make them so prone to conspiracy theories?
Well, the first thing is doubt. God has given us a wonderful machine called the brain, and we pick up. We got our 5 microphones, as I like to call them, which are 5 senses, feed onto a hard drive, and frontal lobes processing, right? So we are looking for answers, but we are especially suspicious when regulations are put in place to harness our freedom, our usual way of life, or break our usual routines. Then we start looking for answers. And then, of course, all these conspiracy theories just feed right into it. And if you don't believe it, of course, and by the way, before we came on set, I was telling you, in one situation in Toronto, Seventh-day Adventist, PSW, that's personal support worker. She said she's not wearing a mask. I mean, come on. She said, no, I'm not wearing a mask. And personal support workers, even without COVID-19, who wear a mask because they attend the geriatric care, right? But her thing was, look, God will take care of us. He said in Psalm 91, none of these plagues will come their dwelling, all right? So they decide, well, hey, man, if I really believe in Jesus, if I believe in God, then so we even have this non-compliance from the faith community, because they believe, well, what I'm under the shadow of the Almighty, and I think COVID-19 has really dampened our spirits, has really done one on us, taking a lot of our freedoms away. And people are just protesting. Look at what happened in Grenada, for example. In Grenada, for the carnival, the government decided no carnival. And this is one of the big traditions in Grenada. Now, there are 2 kinds of masqueraders. There are a lot of masqueraders in Grenada, but there are 2 particular type of masqueraders. One called a shot knee and one called the jab jab. The jab jab is we used to call it devil mask. However, what is significant about these two masquerading types is that they are protesters. So when you hear you have a jab band, whatever happens in the community, you hear it in the songs. If the government is not doing well, you hear them protesting the songs, right? And guess what happened? Guess who went against the regulation? The jab and the shotney, right? And they said to the media, don't you know who we are? We are protesters. We don't believe about this. Why should we not play our mass? Why should we put ourselves inside, keep ourselves, contain ourselves inside, and they just came out, despite whatever happened, and played their mass and protested. So again, it has to do, I think it has a lot to do with our belief system. And if people only believe that it's going to kill them, trust me, you'll see a difference. You'll see a difference.
It's interesting. And before we go into the social impact of this, there are some other conspiracy theories. You may have heard also that there's some individuals, we're required to take temperature checks before we go to church. I don't know if you have this experience, but there's some folks who are saying that the thermometer is going to give them radiation, and some folks are saying it's related to the mark of the beast. And so there are all these kinds of conspiracy theories that are
a matter of fact, one of them that I recently heard was that with the PCR test, because they're asking, why do they have to push it so deep down in your nasal cavity, right? And they're saying because they want to implant a chip in your brain, and so there's so many theories out there, and again, these would somehow or the other shape the belief system, and
So now, Doc, with this idea of individuals not complying because they don't really believe, because they're holding on to these conspiracy theories. Before we talk about the social impact again, how do we correct this? How do we change this? What can governments do? What can the church do to change this? Because of course, when folks don't comply, I know in America and in Europe, they're bracing themselves for what is going to happen in a couple of weeks. Because while the regulation said that during the Christmas holidays, folks were not supposed to be gathering, people still had their social gatherings, and the authorities are saying they just know that there's going to be a significant increase in infection rates. So how do we deal with this issue?
Okay, it comes back to education. And I believe that God has blessed our church immensely. Anywhere you go, Seventh Adventists are well learned. Seventh Adventists in some of the top educational facilities, in some of the top government jobs. We have to utilize the expertise that we have within our church, right? And a matter of fact, we'll be talking about that a little later in this conversation. We have to utilize them. First of all, you have the news media, you have the news anchors that are just reporting what they hear, right? But Seventh Adventists are known. I mean, we have actually established our niche in the medical field. I mean, a lot of our of the doctors and nurses on any island in the Caribbean are Seventh Adventists. They have the information. What we have to do is to have the church utilize them, because of course the anchor folks, the news anchor folks are just spilling out what they've gathered, whereas we have the experts within our community, within our churches, that we could use to talk about the science. We'll talk about faith too, that's not a problem, but talk about the science, educate our members so they are able to make better and more intelligent decisions, so that when we come to church, they understand the importance of complying, the importance of sanitizing, the importance of wearing a mask, because they got information, hopefully from someone that's trusted.
Okay, well, thanks for that, Doc. I am, I'm hearing you say that we need to use those officials in our churches. I've had individuals say that they're not going back to church because they're taking temperatures, and they don't want to have anything to do with that. So even complying at the local church level can create a challenge. But like we say, a word to the wise is sufficient, right?
Right.
Mhm. But let's talk about the social impact in your work, in your experience. What are some of the things that you have seen?
Well, one of the big things that we dealt with in Grenada is the suicidal ideation and suicides. Um, I have been, as I said, I think I told you before that I've been appointed as one of the psychosocial advisors to the government. And as an interventionist, I'm called. The police, I kind of work with the police and they call and we got to go. We see starting, I mean, I probably chose the deepest of them, but probably we should start there. So we see the hopelessness it brings. And what is strange for me? Well, not strange, but it's so evident there is that the number of cases we see in Grenada, to be exact, where I am right now, that almost 98% of them are men. And of course, when we look into it, men who are now, because of COVID situation, may have lost their jobs, men who cannot take care of the family, men who are being taunted as lazy and again, it's all because of the wiring, and that's something I spoke about in another article. The wiring of the brain, how the man is more prone to giving up. The man is more prone to feeling as a failure because of his brain wiring. And so we've seen. I had to be running around, supporting and comforting. And by the way, Pastor, 3 weeks ago, I was in one of our churches doing a presentation on the psychosocial impact of COVID-19 on our church, our churches, and our communities. And while I was actually doing that, you won't believe, while I was actually doing that presentation, one of our brothers, baptized Adventist, was drinking a toxic substance while I was actually doing the presentation, not in the church, another part of the island. By the time I got out of that and got home, I got the news he died. Right? So there is a high level of hopelessness. And for the man, the male and gentlemen listening out there, ladies especially, when you see your husband, your sons, or who are your significant other being quiet and there's so many red flags we could talk about. Go help, say something, find help. Professional help or pastors are well trained, talk to them because we are losing men. Men are reaching at the point of frustration a whole lot more. But we've also seen things like domestic violence. Because of course, Pastor, you would understand SLC that going to work, I'm going to school. These are routines that we take part in. These are things that make up our day. And the little socializing or family time we spend together in the afternoon after work, after school, is now fully stretched, maximized, because now, for example, in Grenada, we had school. Now, because of, you may have heard in the news that we just had a new cluster with one of the hotel, the resorts in Grenada. And we had 13 infected, and so now school should be opening on Monday, but they delayed that. They delayed that. So again, we were so thankful that our children are back to school, back to a kind of regular life, and then it shut down again, right? So that is having a serious impact on the emotional and mental health of our people, and we see the fights, we see the arguments, we see parents being scared for their children. Come in, stay in. It's curfew in Grenada. We have a curfew, 8 o'clock to 5 in the morning. Young people want to be outside. That's what they did before. That's how they socialize. No Pathfinder Club, AY. So these are things, and the pressure is just building. And we see a lot of domestic violence. We see assaults on children. We see sexual assaults. Because guess what? The perpetrator is locked in with the victim now, right? And so we see an increase in that. So there are quite a lot of social ills that we are seeing, and I'm telling the government that we got to get ready. And good for the government of Grenada. They had a number of us, 4 of us, that met and put together. Just 1 second here, please. 1 second.
So if you're just joining us, we're talking with Dr. Neals Chitan. He is a social consultant to the government of Grenada, among other things. And we're just right now dealing with the psychosocial impacts of COVID. And he's identifying to us some of the experiences that he's come across.
And then, Pastor, we have the issues of our seniors, because seniors are not allowed to fellowship. So it's believed that their immune system could be compromised a lot easier, and as a result, they're not in church. That is taking a toll on them and their emotional and mental health. As a matter of fact, my mom here in Grenada is in an Assembly of Adventist nursing home. And just for the record, something I never wanted, by the way. However, the reality, she's in a nursing home. And we would go see her and we'd sing with her and cheer her up. Now, we can't. I mean, we got to just pass. I got to try to figure out when is it that she's on the balcony. And hopefully I could drop by and just wave from afar. And that is taking a toll on our seniors too. So right across the board, the human family at large is not doing well, While at the same time, I want to show you something here, coming back on the conspiracy and fake news agenda. Okay, because here we had, Pastor, a virus that originated in China. And then that virus put most of our countries in trouble with respirators, okay? And people are saying, we only got 2 in Grenada. We need to get more, right? And at the same time, you have China now beefing up the production of respirators. You have China producing all the masks and all the protective gears. The average man in the street is saying, I wonder if they didn't actually plant that virus so that they could create a demand to supply it and make trillions of dollars, right? So it's just so many things up in the air, so many unanswered questions in each of our little islands. And sometimes, we say, one person, as a matter of fact, one person actually commented on my article. When I said the average man on the street, I'm speaking for the average man on the street, and the person commented, no, he's not the average man on the street. Even us, that in the academia world, we too are thinking the same thing, So it's just, we are plunged. COVID-19 has plunged us into a lot of uncertainties, uncertainties. And then it's a situation of the vaccine, where you just talked about the mark at the beach, right? A little earlier.
Yeah, that's another discussion altogether.
That's another discussion.
Indeed. In fact, I do plan in perhaps around the 23rd of January. That's going to be our topic, should Seventh Adventists take the COVID vaccine?
Wow,
And
that,
but I want to go back to something you mentioned, and I could delve in on any one of the issues that you raised there, the social impact. The fact that there are individuals who end up taking their own lives, that's pretty tough. So when an individual, I learned this week, of course, in fact, on December 31, the Inter-American Division publishing director succumbed to COVID
yes,
complications. And I was here thinking, his wife is now behind, and
yeah.
perhaps children, the loss of a loved one, of a breadwinner in your house, how does that impact people, and what kind of psychological pressures or social pressures does that put a family through?
Well, the thing about it, Pastor, in my book, Pulling the Plug, a practical guide to the downward spiral of loss, grief, depression, and suicide, I spoke about 3 different kind of losses: the unanticipated loss, the anticipated loss, the unanticipated loss, and then the compound loss. The loss, the anticipated loss is a loss where you see your mama, you see your dad getting sick, going through dementia. You kind of see the handwriting on the wall, and you prepare yourself for the loss of a parent. All right. Although it still happens on the day of when they expire, it's still very traumatic, right? But at least you would have. Then you have the unanticipated loss, where everything is great, going well. Family has a real nice vacation planned, and everything is going well. You just draw up your plan for a nice home or whatever it is, and then tragedy strikes. That is terrible. And then you have a third one, it's called a compounded loss, where you have a series of back-to-back losses before you could actually survive one. Another one comes again. And in the Bible, there is such a powerful illustration of compounded loss. And that's Job. If you remember the story of Job.
Yes.
Before Job recovers from one, here's another one. Unanticipated loss always has a devastating impact on family, even friends. We had one here in Grenada where I actually saw it. We had a bus accident. One of our lab technicians that were actually processing the PCR test. She was on her way home on a public transport, and the bus, a big truck, one of those big heavy truck came around, swamped the bus, and she died on impact. And I was called in to come into the hospital and help the staff. And Pastor, there were doctors and there were nurses and everybody just band together in one homogeneous grief mixture, bawling and falling on the ground. Some were crying, some were singing, some were swearing. I mean, actual swearing, right? Because of the impact of that unanticipated loss. However, what COVID has done is not just because anyhow you take it, no matter COVID or no COVID, the human family will suffer unanticipated loss. And that's why the word accident, is in the vocabulary, because an accident is something you don't plan for, right? What COVID has done, COVID has minimized the grief process, has really compromise the grief process. Because when someone dies, when you lose someone in your family, you have to come to terms with the fact that, I have what I call the breaking news. When you get the breaking news, and I had that with one young lady here in Grenada whose mother died in New York. She was coming back home. Mama was coming back home. Some of 2020, barrels were post and everything, it was going to be a great reunion, with her and her mom, and she got a call that her mom was infected. And 2 weeks afterwards, she got a call that her mom died. Mom's only daughter. Okay? And that girl had to stay here in Grenada. And what's going to happen? She would never see her mom again. She would never talk to her mom again. She wouldn't be able to say goodbye. She wouldn't be able to touch her. Like, you know, the things we do to bring closure, right? I remember when my brother died, what did I do? I came from Toronto with 2 ties, 2 black and white ties, and I put a tie. I went in the casket and I put a tie around his neck myself and tied it. And he looked like me in the casket, right? But that was just a way of bringing peace to my soul. And these are things we do, strange things sometimes. We cry, and we tell a story. You know, Caribbean people, we're so good at that. We tell a story while we're crying. And these are meant to help us deal with it and confront it. But here you are with someone, you just heard they die. You never see them again. You can't bring closure to it. There may be, you may remember in March and April when New York was the epicenter. You remember there were even allegations of mass graves, right? Mass graves. Yes. You don't know who your mother is buried with. You don't know where she is buried. You don't know if she's burned. You don't know. And then life continued. There is nowhere to visit. There is nowhere to take your children and say, well, that's where your grandma is. And life have to continue. So these people, this situation, COVID has actually hijacked our grieving process. And you know what? It's going to be, there is going to be a long-term residual grief because of COVID-19.
Let me ask you, Doc, because, you know, again, as you said that, it's a bit much to take in. So I have relatives. I have relatives in the US, you know, and I can begin to worry about my mother-in-law, for example. She's an old lady in her 80s, and I can begin to worry about what happens if she gets infected. So is it a coping mechanism that some people rather choose not to believe that COVID is real so that they don't have to process?
That is correct. That is correct. And because if you don't believe it, if you doubt it, right, then you don't have to deal with the impact of it. Right. And the same thing is like when you lose someone, when a dear family member just accidentally, just unexpectedly dies, what we do, we say, man, I hope this is a bad dream and I get out of it, right? Because if it's not true, and if I don't have to if I come up with reasons, and then you hear people saying things like, no, it cannot be true because I spoke to him last night. And they give all reasons why it cannot be true. The truth about it, they really don't want it to be true. Because if it's not true, then you don't have to deal with the impact of it, right? And similarly, you're sure right in the COVID situation, right? Why be worried? Why be stressed out? Why be cooped up inside when it just may not be true?
So how is all of this affecting the church?
Well, first of all, you know that, I went to church today, and a church of about 400 members is down to about 100 because they have to redesign the sitting, arrangements.
Yes, that's right.
Somebody got to be on the podium just to sanitize every microphone. As soon as you touch it, they got to sanitize it, right? There's someone has to be at the door taking names, and then again, people, as human beings, one of the things that is been spoken about or coming to life with this COVID situation is the issue of a lack of where your personal information,
yes,
is given out, your identity and everything. And then we see it now in the church where they gotta take your name, your address, your phone number, who is there with you, who you could sit with. And so what I noticed is that church is becoming very mechanical, church is becoming very mechanical. They say to you, you know, we got to cut it short. We can't enjoy a good lesson study as we used to. AY, you can't have AY, we can have a social again. And so church is becoming very mechanical. The church is losing finance as a result. Let's be honest here. And I mean, I shared that with the Central Jamaica Conference a couple of weeks ago, because let's see who is not allowed to come to church. Who's not allowed to come to church? The seniors. And we have the postmodern millennials and the Zs now, Generation Z, in church. This two generation, one of the hallmark characteristic is relativism. As a result, there's no absolute truth. They don't believe it. You know, it's the way it rubs me, the way it feels for me. As a result, the church is not getting the kind of a tithe income from the younger generation as it get from the seniors. And so right now, the church is really financed. And I spoke to the Greene conference. As a matter of fact, they had the ministerium, or what you call the ministerial association. They asked me to address them on the same issue. And I told them, I said, look, pastors, you got to work hard. You got to work hard. You got to go there and service your seniors that can't come to church. They want to go to a doctor's appointment, or they want something. Pastor, if you have it, run the errand for them, because at the same time, these are the people who pay you.
Let me interrupt you, Doc, because now, I mean, you're talking from the Grenada perspective, but I have seniors in South Leeward Conference who, you know, when we suggest our guideline, our official position is that, listen, you know, you're over the age of, is it 65, 70, stay home, don't come because of the vulnerabilities and comorbidities that you may have. But individuals get back, they say, listen, this is crazy. I've had senior persons calling me and saying, Pastor, you all are mad. You know, we want to go to church. And some people still go to church. And you know, we say, you know, you go at your own risk, but at least as a church, we have to make a position. But there are lots of individuals who are critical, who say that, you know, we're following government, we're being misled. So what now, you're into this. So I'm asking you, what counsel do you have? There are a few seniors who are listening right now. What counsel do you have?
Okay. Well, Pastor, the truth about it is that I am knocking hard on seniors too. All right. I just had my 61st birthday, so I'm knocking hard too. And I always say, you know, I think God has blessed me with unbelievable health, and I represent our health message very well. And I don't see anything will stop me from going to church, you know, because of course. So I think it would have to be a one-on-one. People would have to make that decision on a one-on-one basis. From a church level, if there is a regulation or a protocol in place, we'll have to support it as best as we can from a corporate perspective. But at the same time, there'll be people there who need the fellowship, need to be there, or it's traditional for them, you know, it's traditional for them, and they have to go Sabbath morning. They can't deal with it, right? The truth about it, Pastor, if and I've said that to them, if staying home when you know church is on, right, is going to depress you even more. Hey man, go get your blessing on. Because from a professional point of view, I have to make a recommendation to people to help them to break the downward spiral of emotional hurt.
So let me ask you, Doc, because now you're introducing another dimension. You're balancing the person's social well-being, you know, the emotional state that is, with the risk that they pose. So I mean, let's take your mother. Granted, now if your mother were to say, "Listen, I need to be in church Sabbath morning," and the government is asking you to make a position to advise them on what do we say to our senior persons? Do we tell
Yeah,
them that it is?
and that's why I said our corporate stand may have to be something different. And again, look at where I'm coming from. I'm supposed to be helping people with their emotional situation.
Yes.
Okay, COVID has damaged us emotionally and mentally. So I am looking for every antidote that I could find to lift the spirit. So I would not go against the regulations of the land. But if I know, for example, and the question is, why are we saying to our seniors, stay home? It's not that, it's because of their age, we believe that the immune system could be more easily compromised.
Yes.
Right? So we're saying to them, it's not that they have the infection and they will give it to us. Right? So for safety of our seniors, we say, look, your immune system might be easily compromised, so we prefer if you stay home. However, if I get a call, and as a professional who has to help people to buoy up their emotional health, and I realize that by not going to church, it's going to affect a certain person. My mother, for example, my mother can't stay home. The only reason my mother is staying home not because she's not staying home, she had a stroke. But the mother I knew 5 years ago, my mother is not going to stay home because church is in her blood. And if Sabbath come and she doesn't go, she's going to get so depressed. I would take my mom to church.
So we have a dilemma.
Yeah, we do. And that's why I'm saying you got to be on a one-on-one basis, and we cannot make a hard and fast rule. Because really and truly, in our psychosocial, when we were forming the road forward for the government of Grenada, the spiritual aspect to handling the COVID crisis was very much highlighted. Very much highlighted. And so whatever spiritual exercises we engage in to help someone, I mean, look, we tell them, let's pray. Let me go. Let me pray with you. And that's supposed to help. Well, then it's the same thing with fellowship. And fellowshipping buoy up the spirit of an individual. So I cannot tell you sitting here that I would oppose the government's regulations and routines when it comes to church attendance for seniors. But I'm just telling you, based on who that senior is and how not going to church may have impacted that individual, I would advise them to go.
So I get you. But at the end of the day, they're going with the awareness that they're making themselves vulnerable.
At their risk, they're taking a risk.
Okay, great. Fine. Now, Doc, I noticed that our time is almost up. It's amazing how quickly time flies. We are not getting a lot of questions today. There's one question that I spotted here, and the person, person is asking, I don't suppose you can answer this question either, because the question really is they're saying it's good to hear about the psychosocial interventions in Grenada. What support is available in Antigua? I mean, you don't live and work in Antigua. I mean, as a church, though, we provide opportunities like I am doing right now for people to get a sense of what is available. But you're in Grenada, but you're still available to work with pastors and
that's correct.
So I want you to say a word on that, because a pastor can call you to do a presentation to his church or her church or district. Right. You just had something in the one of the conferences in Jamaica.
Yeah, Central Jamaica Conference. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. We've and that's the thing about it. COVID has done made its damage and impact, but it's also has created some situations for us that for sharing, for example. I mean, I've spoken in England, Canada, States, all over the Caribbean through Zoom, as we're doing right now. So we could share. Yeah. Now, I have just proposed to the Central Jamaica Conference and the Grenada Conference a way forward. I think Pastor South Leeward Conference, please do not waste the opportunity that COVID is giving us to know each other, to get more acquainted with each other, and to support our brethren. I have put together an approach. And that approach is basically to help churches or conferences deal more intimately with some of the impact, the psychosocial impact of COVID. It's where we would help pastors to go through an exercise with the church, with the different churches, right? And do a survey. So we have, for example, I have the card here with me, right? 16 different areas. The first 5 areas deal with the job, employability, business loss, loss of a paycheck, your ability to provide for your family. The first 5 questions. Areas. Then the next 4 areas deal with things like domestic issues. Domestic violence, child abuse, sexual abuse, and what have you. Then the other category deals with your mental health, your emotional mental health, depression. Are you seeing this in your family? Is this a challenge? And then final, deal with crime and violence and judicial issues. Did you have to call the police because of that? And so what we hope to do is to arm our churches with that, so that the churches, through a special service, which we've arranged, right? So we have the layout of an event, what scripture to use, what songs to use, what testimonies to look for, and then you go into the pastor will take over and go into giving the cards out to the church, where they'll fill the cards out anonymously, all right? And then there will be a COVID-19 box where the members will get up and go and put the cards in. And then you have a strategizing committee that will take all these cards and poll them together in different categories. So you would know, the pastor would know, for example, out of his church of 200 people, 17% of them suffered problems with their jobs, job termination because of COVID or whatever. 12% would have suffered some kind of domestic problems, right? 25% would have suffered depression or suicidal ideation. Another 5% may have gone so bad that they had to get the police involved. And so there's now a court date waiting for them. So you have that information in your hand. After that is done, you could now bring in people who are versed in the areas. And our church has no issue. We don't lack for that. We have brilliant people. We have experts and professionals around. Then we bring them in now to deal with these interest groups, special interest groups, thereby taking care of our membership. It's more an enrich to strengthen our stakes for the massive outreach that's coming soon, because you have no doubt, pastors and theologians, the latter really going to be falling soon.
Yeah, so that is something that we are going to follow up with you on, Doc, and that's great. Again, talking about the psychosocial challenges. We don't have much time, but I want to ask you again. I may be, let's say I get a reduction in salary, which was the case, and I may tell myself, oh, that's okay. But can I be in denial and think that it's okay and it's not, and it's affecting me and I'm not aware of it?
Yeah, and sometimes what we do, we let our so-called faith take over and say, okay, it's all in God's plan, and we mask it with that. And I'm not at all trying to trivialize that whole faith thing, but sometimes, but of course, we may say I'm all right, but really and truly, when the dollar hit the road, You had this expectation, you had this commitment, and you had your children. You might have your daughter in school or your son in school, whatever it is. And now the dollar hits the road and the dollar doesn't meet again, right? No, I'm saying to you, Pastor, that, and that's where again we have to get into this psychoeducation. And you can count on me. Eh? I'm saying that to SLC. Count on me. Pastor,
We hear you. We hear you.
I said when I was in St. Kitts over and over, I'm saying to you again, right? I am Seventh-day bona fide Seventh-day Adventist raised, and I owe my church a depth of gratitude, and I'm willing to help my church any way I can, right? The wiring, this is something we have to do, we really have to do, of the brain, because for the man, he tells himself, because he's supposed to be the leader, he's supposed to be in charge. But it's hurting him inside. It's hurting him. And he's making himself think he's okay. We have to tell the lady now, the female in his life, how to decipher something is wrong. And we have the red flags. I'll come and do it for you. I'll do it for SLC because it's important. I mean, with that brother took his life a couple of weeks ago. As a matter of fact, we buried him on Monday, on Tuesday, right? A sad one, really, really sad one. Again, the wife told me, he was saying to her, why are you looking at me that way? Oh, you're disturbing me. He was doing some strange things that he never did before. She said, I never saw my husband in 50 years, and they got married very young. So, I mean, it's not to say they're old people, really old people. She said, I've never seen my husband walk barefooted outside. But just before he joined, I saw him walk outside barefooted, and it bothered me, but she didn't intervene, right? So we would give you some flags to look for so that our sisters could help our brothers, because I'm telling you what the fact is, our men are most susceptible based on the brain wiring.
We will definitely take you up on that, Doc. And that's just about the end of our time. It's amazing. This hour went by quicker than other hours, it seems. Because that concept of being able to identify these red flags. I mean, we may take for granted that we are, everything is okay, but we talk. I was talking to a brother the other day, for example, and back in March, April, not March, but back in May, yes, April, May. When the bank said, listen, we're going to give you a reprieve, you can not pay, you can get a moratorium on your loan. We started to give some education concerning how the interest should work, but some folks didn't pay attention. And now they're discovering that they're going to have to pay so much more money for the next year, for the next 2 years, or if they can't come up with a lump sum to pay one time. And that in itself can create a stress and a challenge for these individuals. Because guess what? The COVID, the economic impact is not past yet. But here, because an individual took a moratorium on their mortgage and didn't adequately plan for the loan, for the interest payment, now they're having increased expenses. And maybe at the same time having reduction in salary or even out of a job completely. And all of these are pressures that can really cause people to
be hopeless.
Things.
Yeah.
So the matter of being able to diagnose, so to speak, to see these red flags and to be able to say, maybe, we need to go in and have a conversation. So that's something we will follow up with you on, and we look forward to having sessions like those.
In 2 weeks' time, I speak at the St. George's SDA Church in the city, and it's on the same issue of sad, frustrated. It's captioned "sad, frustrated, and depressed." And in that presentation, it's a whole day, divine, and then a discussion in the evening. We actually talk about some of the red flags that you could see that someone is going through psychosis, right? So take me up on it. I'm ready. Anytime you're ready.
Wonderful. And perhaps we can even organize one of this session just to talk about red flags.
Yeah, sure.
That can come up later on.
Sure.
In the meantime, I want to say to our viewers, next week we have another very interesting program lineup. Next week, I'll be in conversation with the church leaders from around the Caribbean Union. We're looking at the church. Is the church relevant? That's our discussion for next week. And joining me will be a few of our presidents from across the Caribbean Union, including, you know, I mean, sister fields in Guyana, in Barbados, in St. Lucia, in Trinidad, in Tobago. We are going to be having a very meaningful discussion on the is the church relevant still? So that's on for next week. And then the following week, we're going to be focusing on religious liberty. And then we will come back the following one where we talk about the vaccine and what's behind it. So we have some exciting programs lined up for you. At Let's Talk, we deal with real issues, troubling issues, and we try to provide concrete answers. Dr. Chitan, it was a pleasure having you today. We are so delighted that you were able to share, and we're grateful for your offer of psychosocial interventions. We will be in dialogue with you concerning how we can organize some of these sessions for our brethren here in South Leeward Conference. And we will have one such discussion on Let's Talk likewise, because this, of course, is a very, very meaningful and important subject, and we don't want to take it for granted at all. Again, I want to wish you God's blessings for the rest of the new year and success in your journeys there in Grenada and wherever else the Lord calls you to. Just a few words for your final comments.
My brothers and sisters, listen out there. We are living in a tough time. 2020 was a tough year, and 2021, we have no guarantee it's going to be any better. We wish and we hope, and we aspire to better things, but there is no guarantee. To bring it home, theologically, we are living at the end of time, and I believe in my heart that Jesus is coming very soon. In the meantime, I'm glad that he's using me as an agent to help to bring relief the best way I can to his children. In the meantime, stay hopeful, love your family, take care of each other, but more than anything else, love Jesus.
Amen. Thank you so much. God bless you. To all of our viewers, do have a wonderful 2021. Please take every precaution, trust in the Lord, and be safe. God bless you.
God bless you. Okay, bye now. Bye.
Bye.